right, welcome to the 148th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Lisa from the Meidler and me, Joe Dragon. And I think so. Greg, I think, is out sick, and we think Sean might show up, and we think I am for I am. We think I am for I am is going to show up too. Yeah. So, but anyway, this is the roundtable.
It will eventually be a roundtable. Right now, it's just a parallel table. Yeah.
Yes. Right on. So first, quick update on the World Blockchain Roundtable layer ownership token distribution from last week's episode. Every host from last week received 333 lot NFTs. Every topic contributor from last week will receive 166 lot. The last week's theme was nominated by I Am for I Am, who will receive 166 lot. The tokens come with free edits, governance votes, passive income on the layer. And we do have an April theme vote. If you can vote by next Tuesday, let me see if I can. Well, I'm not going to pull it up, but you look in the governance in the World Blockchain Roundtable if you have any of the governance NFTs, because we want to make sure we select those episodes for April, right? I mean,
today though we're going to call an audible, right? We're going
to. Yes, I think so. Now, we can possibly still. We can look at questions too if we get through. Okay. But yeah, if you're okay, I guess there's two of us. I'll vote for it.
I'll vote with you.
This week is blockchains used for political polling and other surveys nominated by I Am. So sorry about that. But I think we will. We do have. There's one question, so we can make sure we get it. You want to do it first?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me get it shared then, because I have the other stuff queued up, but I need to queue this up. So it is this one. Turn that off. This on, and here it is. So, and I think I can make this bigger too, right? So. The question, this topic is near and dear to my heart. Me too, because I can envision how the umbrella promise would have an element of political surveys among registered voters. Makes a lot of sense, right? As well as ranking of issues from most important to least. Also very important. Blockchain is a perfect fit for this topic. Imagine if you didn't have a horse race mentality with elections in the U.S. Europe is probably similar. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's always framed as it's this guy against this guy, and this guy could never win. So don't even worry about him. They aren't ever talking about the issues or what you care about for, what this person is going to represent me. I want to know where they stand on this. I want to vote on that. I don't care if he's less likely to win.
It would be great if it wasn't one person, if we were actually voting on issues per issue. Yeah.
That would be perfect, wouldn't it? Yeah. And then, even that alone too, people saying, this is where I stand, and this issue is, ranked as my most important issue. And therefore you'd think even if they were legitimate and honest and, doing good, the media would even benefit from that. It's like, oh, this is what people care about. Let's focus on that. Right. It's just, so backwards right now. So.
Yeah. If we didn't have corrupt media, but like that, I'm thinking about how you're explaining it. Like I would even tend to be okay with JFK or RFK,
totally
being but I don't agree with all of his policies,
I agree. Yep.
And so on the ones where I could say, okay, I think you would do a great job for our country in a lot of different ways, but on this issue, I'm not all in on you on this one,
Right. Exactly. I'm the same way. He has some particular issues that I'm really interested in, the way he has his context. With his history that is very interesting, and then I have somewhere I was like, I totally disagree with him, and some that make me wonder about, and just like with every one of his other opponents makes me wonder, who owns them, why are they saying that? It's just crazy stuff. So anyway, thank you. I am normally yes, and thank you. Normally you ask 2 or 3 questions, so it's always good. We should maybe even invoke an I Am for I Am rule where you aren't limited to a single question. You'll
There
get
you go.
credited, even if it's like, maybe we should do that.
Maybe we should have
So
him join the show.
yeah. So, and by the way, I didn't get to answer I am 4AM's question about Dracaria. So Dracaria was the project we just announced, which we've been working on for over 2 years now, and with some pretty remarkable partners. And we know that it's important because it fits so many, it answers so many issues, or solves so many issues in the world of esports and gaming, and it also provides potentially a much richer experience for both the person who's playing a game and the game developers. That you can do so many more things with it, and it answers a lot of the questions that people were hopeful with NFTs and blockchain as well, where the reuse of NFTs and items and characters and stuff like that. So there's some pretty amazing capabilities behind it. And I am for I am asked if there was a role for Den in it, and I
Oh,
meant to answer and I missed answering it before the end of the show. Ran out of time. But essentially, yes, that Den is going to be, or already is, the major governance component, and much of what will be the comms, we hope, for the project, and for what the projects that spawn from that project. But essentially, the governance model that is so far agreed to by all of the people that have been building it is that, first of all, there is a founders or builders component, which is currently in existence, that all of the people that have been building it have votes in the project, and there is already currently a private layer on Den, which we've been using for all of the official votes.
oh wow.
And that will be made public maybe in the coming days. I don't know. We haven't decided.
So is this the first ever DAO created game?
Possibly. I mean, that was kind of the envisioned when
That's kind of amazing.
where to solve. You think about it, to solve things like community input into the process of adding a character, changing a game, changing rules, other things, right? It gives the community, and essentially, so we have the builder vote, which is made up of the people who've been building it.
Okay.
We are going to have a vote, does not exist yet because this doesn't exist yet. We are going to have a vote comprised of all hatched dragons. So if you have an egg, can't vote yet. You can go to war. I'm joking. You can't vote yet.
But you can't drink. Yeah.
But and then there's another class that is an intended thing that's not even announced, even in the unannounced stuff, which would be another group of people will probably guess what it is, but where essentially there will be a place for the people who are, helping build the project, contributing, doing things. There's even some really, in my opinion, some crazy ideas that will hopefully excite the legal world, because I think we have a really cool way of doing things, that an historical and approach that is, there's no question. It's one of the few rare things in the world that I think you would have clarity on in the legal world. So we're going to do a couple of things like that. And so, yes, all of the governance, though, will be run through Den. And so hopefully we'll bring with that a lot of people into Den to participate in there. And, maybe we'll be able to get some of the initiatives at Den completed in that way, right? Open source it and
really
get some
cool.
new stuff built. So anyway, that's the question answered. Thanks.
Have you sent I am for AM a link?
No, can
I
you send it to
I
him?
can do it, I think.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you did.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I sent him a message.
I don't have the link. I go straight in.
I
so
should have it. Here it is. because we were going to talk about
Thank you so
political
much.
polling.
And by the way, political polling, super interesting thing. And there, I'm hopeful that a few things are coming out with a partner that will do some of that, but it kind of depends on which way they pivot. That they're doing a lot of different things, and one of the things that was an option, and it's something that we could build pretty easily on Dragon Chain or as its own thing. If anybody is ever interested, I can, give you everything you would need to know to do that. And it wouldn't take much to code it. And, the question is, how do you get adoption and everything else? But you can do a lot of really cool things with it. So,
Okay.
let's see here. So other than that, for the Audible, I mean, we have,
Oh my gosh, so much.
yeah,
Audible.
I have, here, let's see. Did I close that? I might have closed it. I can open this up. Come on. There he is. There is.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, I am.
In short, do I call you I am? I mean, because I know your real name. So
Yes, yes,
okay.
that works.
Okay, good deal.
Oh, let me pause my my phone so it doesn't
playing in the background
there. My apologies there.
No
So Lisa, I did not get back to you on your messaging.
That's
and
okay.
I apologize. If you look at my hat,
yes,
I turned 60.
What?
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. That was yesterday.
Happy birthday. Wow.
So this weekend was a surprise party. My son drove up from the Rio Grande Valley. My brother, who hadn't been in Texas in 18 years, flew out. It was a big shindig. I had a nephew fly down from Colorado and grandnieces and all that good stuff. And it was a lot of fun. So
nice.
I was out of commission, shall we say, even though I didn't partake.
You were celebrating hard. Yes. Oh, I love it. Well, happy birthday.
My apologies.
Wow.
My apologies.
No,
but
no
thank you for welcoming to the show today. And I'm anxious to hear more about Dracaria.
Yeah, hopefully.
And have a lot of questions.
Okay, yeah, that's what I want. I want to know if you have questions, right?
Sure. And tough ones. No.
All right.
But I don't know if you saw in the last minute, I put up a proposal just to either punt this week's blockchain survey thing and double them up for next week, or we'll just do the Audible. So I didn't post any questions because I also knew the Dracaria announcement was going to be this week.
Yes. And, thank you for that. Thank you for posting questions every week. I don't know if you heard. It's like I think we ought to put in a proposal to let people be rewarded for multiple questions, because it seems, it's like it's all competition if you can get the highest ranked ones, right?
Ooh, so, more lot for me, for me.
Yeah. So,
but I got my second cup of coffee. It's actually like my third and fourth.
Oh my goodness.
And, I'm looking for dragon eggs in there, but I don't see any.
I want to hear about the white paper because I didn't miss. I missed the super happy.
We did promise I will reveal the eggs. We are. I believe we're not going to reveal dragons for a while. Because I don't know, they're very exciting. If you see one, they're pretty beautiful.
They may have been revealed in the past. People just didn't recognize. They weren't identified.
I hope not. But it's entirely possible. Some of them, but either way, I expect that we'll reveal them when the first one hatches, which is a little bit risky because what if it's an ugly one? There could be, and I say ugly. There's some that are. They don't have much color. They're very white and gray. There's some that are very dark and gray. But there's some that are pretty amazing because they'll be like very dark, but then they'll have these red patterns on their face or on their wings or something. It's like, man, they're cool looking. So anyway, there's a bunch of cool stuff. But so I will show it and see here. I don't know if this is probably. It looks like it's too small to read, right? Let me see if I can't.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I want to make it at least so you can still see the format of it. So anyway, the vision is
about the name real quick.
Yes, Dracaria.
How do we get the name Dracaria?
So it's a funny thing. one of my developer friends that I used to work with long ago, or sorry, he worked for me back when he was right out of school. Brilliant guy, very interested in gaming. He he made this game, and it always stuck with me. He made this game that he wanted to call it Devaria, right? But it was for developers. It was a world for developers. It was like an RPG. It was kind of like taking GitHub and plugging it in as an RPG. So it'd be almost like, oh, I'm a coder, or I finance these various projects, or but you would have a class, and then you would have levels. You could level up. You'd have a little card that you could show in your LinkedIn profile or something. And it was all kind of cool, but it was all very focused on developers, and you plug projects in and you get points. And this is pre-blockchain, right? I mean, this would have been way before I went to Disney even. And he called it Devaria, and I always just thought that was just, it's a cool name because it sounds like it's a fantasy world, the Aria at the end. And Drac is dragons, right? So right. Yeah, it makes sense. So we kind of stuck with it.
This was the word that what's her name screams when the dragons fly on that movie.
Right? No, it's close. It's close.
She says something very similar to that.
Was it Dracarys? I think
maybe Dracarys.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not an expert, but
yeah.
And that might even be one of the names available to a dragon. I do believe.
Can you name your own dragon, or does the name populate?
The name populates. It has an official, like as if it was in a royal registry, right?
Okay.
That the name, then there is a short name, which is 4 parts in a name. So it's and you'll see in the white paper.
Okay.
Maybe I should just start scrolling.
Yeah, I won't jump ahead. No.
Vision is big, right? And when we've kind of mocked this out for future use, how you could build a game around it, these characters, it's remarkable the level, the richness of variety you can get, because there are 57 genes. There's more than 4 billion possible variations on just these dragons, right? So pretty remarkable stuff. The people we're working with on the outside, and when we announce them, I'll tell you there's the story of how we came together. It was pretty amazing. It's like, in my opinion, it's like one of those things. It's like hand of God stuff that something happens. You're like, this is obvious. We need to do this, right? And they were already Dragon Chain fans, and they brought this dragon to us, and I was like, well, I didn't know if they wanted to sell it to us. I didn't know what they wanted. But I pitched them on this idea, and they loved it. And so we went with it, right? Extensible genome. And what's more important maybe is the fact that you can create other classes of characters. And we already have, the intention to create other classes of characters that could be used, in simple games or more complex games, right? So there's a lot to it. And the white paper is it's there, and it's publicly available on Dracaria World on X. So if you go to x.com, search for Dracaria World, you'll find it, and the white paper is the pinned link. And by the way, I would say follow Dracaria World, because that is where gateway keys will be given away. So the intended model is that some trivia will be posted from the white paper. You'll find the answer in the white paper. You'll enter, and someone will get a gateway key. I don't know if it's every week, and we'll probably do different giveaways on Instagram and TikTok and elsewhere as these as we roll those out. Right now, everything is on X. So also, there's a calendar. So and I won't go to the details. I went to some detail in Super Happy, and I probably went into too much detail, so apologies to anybody. But essentially, the calendar goes, and it's a continuous cycle of earth, water, air, fire. Earth, water, air, fire. Approximately 30 days each, and approximately half of that time when an egg can be spawned, and the other half of that time, an egg cannot be spawned. And the blockchain does dictate when the seasons do end, and it does also dictate when the next season starts. And every four seasons is one cycle, and that cycle is called an age. And you'll see why that is later when we, the dragon names. Here are details.
May I ask a question? Will those coincide with like our seasons, spring, summer, fall, etc.?
No, it's about a month per.
Pardon me?
It's about 1 month per.
1 month per.
Yeah. So it's essentially you'll go through, you would expect to go through 1 month, one season every month, and you'd expect to go through one age every quarter, right? Okay. Or every third of the year. Every
age per quarter. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I was confused.
Yeah, an age is actually every 4 seasons. So, and the interesting thing, the reason we did the seasons is because there are some events that we expect in the future, and we don't know the exact timing of those that will help the project get attention. And so we made this as a cycle, so it'll just go on forever. And the interesting thing, though, is that the number of eggs that can be spawned changes every season, right? And yet it's the goal is to organically match the activity, the interest. And so essentially, if one season is real dry, let's say there are 200 eggs available, but only 25 were spawned, that the next season only 50 will be available. So it immediately contracts that supply.
So is that the scarcity model kind of within the eggs?
Yeah. And the other side of the scarcity, because some people will say, but you could have as many ever as would want. The price is what will curtail that, because the price goes up in 10 tiers every season, and it increases 4x every season. So if you start at, let's say, 0.1 ETH, at the end of the season is going to be 0.4 ETH. And the next season is going to start right in the middle of that and then quadruple to its end. And so pretty soon they're going to be very expensive to produce. And you'll always have that. If you want new genome, if you want new genes, then you're going to have to go spawn a new egg. And
is spawning hatching?
No, we'll get into that in a minute. So spawning is when you come in, you say, okay, I want an egg. I want 2 eggs, whatever. They show up in your panel, right? So you'll have a web interface that you use Web3 for now to log in. By the way, we do expect we would probably accept dollars later and do some things more natively. But right now we just want to keep it as something that everybody understands, that we don't have to explain. And when you spawn the egg, it shows up in your panel, right? And if you have multiple eggs, you'll see them. You can look at them. When you spawn the egg, you will know what house it's from. You'll know this is a water dragon, and you'll know what spawn element it is. And we'll show you that in a minute. Spawning them, there are some interesting things. Like one of our partners asked for this for giveaways. They're a really big partner, and we ended up creating a golden egg. So you get it if at the end of every season, the final season's hash dictates a lot of things, like say when the next season starts and stuff like that. But it also selects one out of all of the spawned eggs that will be the golden egg, right? And that golden egg will get whatever those prizes are if there's a sponsor. And whether or not there's a sponsor, you will also be able to take the egg, or as long as you're still holding the egg in that next season, you will get a free egg, right? So the golden egg gets you a free egg the next season.
Cool. Yeah.
Gateway keys. So like people who might give away what would normally be whitelists in the crypto NFT world, right? Whitelist spots. The gateway key will get you a free egg, and those will be very limited. And we expect to give away a decent number of them in this initial phase where we're trying to educate people on the mechanics of it and the technology behind it. And then because the price, and if you analyze this and you look in, it's like, why would anybody buy it in the second half of a season? Because it's going to go back down to the middle price next season. There's a lot of gaming involved with that, but it's the way that we allow price discovery in the reverse is with this sawtooth pattern. And I can explain if anybody wants to know the details, but essentially if you buy in the second half of the if you spawn an egg in the second half of the season, you will essentially get a discount in the next season.
For the next season. Oh, that's cool.
The lowest price of this season. So if
Okay.
let's say the next season started at 0.3 and went up to 1.2. This season though started at 0.1. So I'll be able to get in that season and get an egg for 0.1. Right.
Interesting.
So
okay. Cool.
It makes sense, right? There's a bunch of stuff around those. Elemental families, houses, and colors, right? So the elemental, you can see firehouse or house fire is red, house water is blue, house earth is green, house air is white or gray or black, right? And there are 5 colors involved. There is the primal color, which is the main color of the dragon. The companion colors, which I guess I should say it's one color is selected. If you are a water dragon, the companion color, there's a gene that selects either cyan or magenta. And when I say it selects the color, it's not pure magenta. It will be within plus or minus 30 degrees of the center magenta. Just like it won't have a pure blue dragon, often you will have somewhere in this range of 60 degrees on this color wheel, right?
So I guess
you can have
a pure color dragon is possible.
Yes.
Not probable, but would be worth more if it was.
It might, right? Or it might be, if people, it's art, right? Yeah. So, and it's, I don't know what, I think it's, it's a deterministic, generative art, I guess you might call it, right? So the primal color and companion color, they'll give a good mix. And if you're in any of these 3 colors, it's going to be one of the colors adjacent to it. If you have an air dragon, though, the companion color could be any of those 3.
Oh, I see.
Right. So it has a little more variety there, but it has less variety in its own color because it's going to be a gray, right? Gotcha. General. Then there's a pattern color, and the pattern color is what lights up the patterns on the dragon. And I've, my favorites that I've seen from the examples we've seen internally are the wings, because depending on the pose of the dragon, the wings show significantly, and they're, just in your face. If you see if it has a high pattern, or if it has like say a very bright color or something for the patterns. They also have some pretty good images of patterns on their face that makes them look really fierce. It's pretty crazy. And how do I say this? There's a bunch of other stuff there that really makes the variety crazy. And I'll show you the genes. Really, it's pretty obvious that it's going to be hard to, and when you look, like once you have a dragon and you kind of really analyze, because I've had to do tests and make sure that the renderings were correct and that the data was correct and everything else. And it's interesting when you drill down into the details how much variety there is, because you might say, oh my gosh, why am I not seeing this? It's like, oh, because this other gene makes it so I can't see it, right? It's just a crazy thing. So
dominant genes.
You mentioned the positioning. Is that part of it? Can the dragon move? Can you change positions, or is that a spawned thing as well?
Right. So when they first come out, the deal is that the eggs, and you'll see the eggs, will show you, you'll be able to tell what house it is from the egg itself, and you'll be able to tell what the spawn element is from the setting, from the background.
Okay.
When the dragons are actually rendered, when one of these eggs hatches and you get a dragon rendered, the pose is one of 4 poses selected by what house it is. So all the fire dragons will have the same pose, all the air dragons, same pose. Yet we do expect that in the very early phase, some of the first things we're going to add are the ability to add other poses. Like I want that pose so I can see the back of the dragon, or whatever else, right? Because some of the poses you can't, you obviously can't see all parts. And we do hope, I'm hoping that we get a 3D render that would be partially manipulatable, but at least rotatable, for example, in the browser, in the console when you're looking at your dragons, along with the genes. And that's the reason I want that, is so that you could at least theoretically select a gene and it could highlight the part of the dragon that
you can
controls, right?
One. Yeah.
Right. Because it is a mappable thing. And you will own the the posed rendered dragon, and any poses you buy, of course. And there hopefully we'll be able to put in animations. We don't know some of the requirements yet on what will be possible there, but we know we can do it. We just haven't decided if it makes sense, but it probably does, where you'd be able to, say I have this dragon and I bought a whole bunch of poses for it and some animations for it, so it's cooler than that other dragon, right? Just featured stuff. So that said, genetics and hashing. So when you spawn an egg, and I went over this in the other show, so you guys tell me if you don't want to go into such detail as this, but essentially the back end, the system generates what we call a spawn hash. And that spawn hash is intended to make a unique starting value. And it brings in your transaction hash plus your block hash, the block hash that it was in, which can't be predicted, plus the serial ID of your egg. So if you spawned, or let's say a bunch of us spawned eggs in the same block, then they're all still going to have unique spawn hashes. All right. Even if you spawned them in the same transaction. So if I spawn 10 eggs in one transaction, they will still all have unique spawn hashes, and very unique, very different spawn hashes because of the hashing algorithm. The spawn hash is used to deterministically decide the house, the spawn element. I'll show you how in a minute. The egg density, which is super important for the hatching algorithm. The hatching algorithm seed, similar to that, and the basis for the genome once it hatches, which you cannot predict until it's fully hatched. So first, the house is determined by the least significant 2 bits, that is zeros and ones, at the end of your spawn hash determine if it's earth, water, air, or fire. Exactly like that, right? Really simple, very straightforward. The spawn element is determined, and the rarity determined by taking your entire the 2 nibbles, the second least significant byte, whatever. Okay. It's these 2 characters right here in your 64 character string that is your spawn hash.
Wow.
And it's set by a range. So if your value, in this case, it's 125. So if it's between 0 and 191, 75% of them are going to fall in that range. You're going to have the same house. So if you have a water dragon, it's going to be a house water. House water. It's going to have a spawn element of water also. Between these ranges, about 10% each, it's going to be one of the adjacent houses. Still very rare, right? But the opposite house is less than 5%, very rare, right? Okay. And on top of that, you have values from 244 to 255, and we're just ranking them that way. So the higher the value, the more rare it is, at least in that scale. So you could have a level 255 rarity, and you can't get any more rare, right? So that's what that is. Now we go to egg density.
What would the opposite house of air be? Because it's in the center.
Earth. Oh, well, you think about it elemental, like in that case, like
okay. Don't think about it set on the power wheel.
Like fire versus water.
Fire versus water, earth versus air. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you've ever looked, some of the reason that some of this popped up and it made really good sense to use. If you ever go through, you read Vitruvius. Do you know who Vitruvius is? Do you know the diagram of that Da Vinci of the man,
Yes.
a circle,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Where
yeah.
he shows it was a diagram that came from Vitruvius wrote 10 books for Caesar Augustus, the emperor at the time. He was an architect, and the history that's in those is amazing because there's some stuff in there that like I had no idea that they thought that. And he goes through an entire section where he describes what they understand as elements. They didn't have what we have as our elements. Their elements were literally earth, water, fire, and air. And I'm going to get this wrong, but like he would say that a piece of wood is comprised of earth and air, because when you attack it with fire, the air is released in smoke, and the earth is released into ashes. And that's how they described everything, and everything
Wow.
on Earth can be described in that way with those 4 elements, and it all makes damn good sense. It
Wow.
really makes sense. And that Vitruvius, I mean, I guess that Vitruvius was part of a study where he was showing why certain ratios in columns made sense, and they were all based on the human form, on the measurements of nose to eye to head,
Right.
and
I
the
remember
fingers.
that.
That's all. So anyway, he had a bunch of stuff about the elemental in there, and I was like, I even as a history major in school did not know that that's how things worked right back then. So anyway, so we go down and we talk about egg density. So egg density, it takes the entire spawn hash and it does. Do you know what modulus is?
No.
It is a it's not divided by, it's I should maybe mark that better to make it more clear, but modulus is you take one number, divide it by another number, and the answer is the remainder. Modulus is just the remainder of a division, right?
Okay.
And we use it in a lot of places because if you have like, let's say you have a contest, you can look at how we did that keyboard giveaway back in the day, that you have a contest and you have 70 people that entered, right? So I can take any arbitrarily large number, in this case, a 32 byte integer, gigantic number. It's going to be like 2 billion something, right? And I can take that, divide by 70 and get the remainder. And that answer is always going to be between 0 and 69. Right?
It's almost like the law of 72, the doubling effect.
Yeah.
So
finance. It's an interesting thing. So in this case, we take that spawn hash, which again is going to be some arbitrarily large number, and we modulus 1000. And so we're going to get 0 to 999, right? That we know that we're going to get in that range, and that it's going to be a fair markdown because no one can predict that initial number. Nobody can predict what the spawn hash is, including us building the system, including somebody running an Ethereum node, including somebody running a Dragon chain. Nobody can predict this at all. And you're going to get one of these ranges. And then we just situate the ranges, the ranges, so that 5% of them will get 100,000 density, and 0.1% will get 10 million density. Wow. Right. So this is going to be a very rare. We might not ever see an egg with a 10 million density. It's entirely possible we won't ever see it. It's going to be very rare. But that's what we want. And in tests, we built out a few million sample dragons genomes. And of those few million, we tested them against mock hash block hashes, and that we had several that went years without hatching, and we had one that finally hatched after, I think it was 12.4 years. If
oh my gosh,
wrong. And so you might get an egg that doesn't hatch for a really long time, right? Mm-hmm. But there will probably be some interesting uses for that egg while it isn't hatched. A bunch of really cool things that we could do. But anyway, most of them will get 375,000, right? And how do I say this? In tests, and that's why we ran millions. We wanted to get enough, a big enough sample to really understand that we've found that approximately 50% of all the eggs hatch within that first month, right? Give or take. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes a little less. It's all probabilities. You can't predict any of it. And the reason it matters is, and you'll see this, if you have a really dense egg that should take a real long time to hatch, but it hatches fast, it ends up with magic. And if you have a really an egg that is not dense on the lower end and it takes a long time to hatch, you get magic, right? And I'll show you that too. But essentially, these numbers, and the reason that they are fixed numbers and not just I guess a little more granular than this, is that each one of these is the inverse probability of a hatch event on the next Ethereum block. So every time an Ethereum block comes out, if you have an egg that has a 500,000 density, you essentially have a 1 in 500,000 chance, and the formula is down here. So we take the spawn hash plus the block hash, that the current newest block hash, we hash it. We hash those together, and we run modulus of whatever your density is. And if you get a 0, then your egg has started to hatch. Hasn't hatched yet, but it started. All right. So it's
how long does it take to hatch if it started?
Right. So once it starts, we grab, and this is a little bit out of order for this explanation, but we grab the prior 5 Ethereum block hashes. We of course take this block hash that triggered the hatch itself, and then we take the next 5 block hashes from Ethereum. Then we take a Bitcoin block hash from approximately within the last 24 hours, and then a future Bitcoin block hash from the next 24 hours. And that's approximate and not predictable. Bitcoin could have 20-minute blocks instead of 9-minute blocks, or whatever they do right now. And those are both, by the way, unpredictable which past Bitcoin block it would be. That totally comes from the hatch event itself and your spawn hash, and the future block the same way. And and when we did, for the technical aware, we are saying the past 24 hours, but not within the past 6 blocks, and the future 24 hours, but not within the next 6 blocks. So that the whole 6 blocks of Ethereum is golden standard, right? Is honored. And so we take the spawn hash, the historical Bitcoin block hash, the past 5 Ethereum block hashes, the hatch event block hash from Ethereum, the future 5 Ethereum block hashes, and the future Bitcoin block hash. We hash all of those together, and that gives you your raw genome. So it's a pretty crazy thing, but there is no way, short be it some deity, to manipulate that.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I said the randomness in the is how can I say, it's verifiable as well as you can't manipulate it.
Yep. And if anybody has any ideas, I've been describing it as entropy. It's a blockchain based entropy, where we are using a measurable, independently provable, unpredictable entropy, future events, to define things. It's not random. It's really weird. It's not random.
Right. Yeah, it is.
It's superior to randomness, because any physicist will tell you any arbitrary, random number generator is not actually random. It's just hopefully not predictable. And, you have to kind of trust the people who are giving you that number, or trust the device that's giving you that number, or trust the guy who's telling you what number the device gave him. And with this, you don't have to have any of that. This is kind of a pure form of, one of the beautiful things that blockchain makes possible And you can, and the attempt was to try to say, okay, we're going to take that to its extreme, use both Ethereum and Bitcoin for that entropy. By the way, all of this information is stored on a Dragon Chain level 1 node that is Dracaria. So it's Dracaria's own blockchain running on the Dragon network, and then connecting, pulling this info from
Information
Ethereum
off the other
From
blockchain.
Ethereum and Bitcoin.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hatch name. So here's another. This is an interesting piece. So the name is 4 parts. One is for your house. The first name is your house. The second name is from your spawn element. So a rarer one will have an opposite meaning. The third is from the season in which you spawned that egg. And the fourth is from the season in which it hatched, which you can't predict, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we use 8 bytes for each, right? So because it's a 32 byte genome. So we take the genome in full and we split it into those parts. And you can see an example down here where we have, let's say this is an earth dragon that had a spawn element of water. So it's somewhat rare. It's like one of the 10% rare ones. It has a spawn season of air and it has a hatch season of fire, right? And so we take the genome bytes, and again, it's modulus, length of name list for a given element. And there are, I believe, 200 and something names defined for each element. And, this was me going through and I pulled, there are 100 and over, or I think it's over 120 languages used. So all of the languages that you could get from an online translator, and a few languages that are indigenous, American indigenous languages, a few that are indigenous in other places, and then a few fantasy languages. All right. And you'll see some of them in there. So, and that's just to fit with the lore and everything else. But essentially, you imagine for fire, the words are fire, I think, flame and burning. For water, it was, water, lake and river, I think. Air was air, space, and sky, right? And then for the indigenous ones, I had to be a little more creative where some of them fit in. It's a couple of fantasy ones don't have as many words, because they're limited. You imagine some of the Tolkien languages. And so it was fun to do this, and it's crazy. So, this dragon example has the hatch name Kemen Lago. I don't know why I selected this. It's so hard to read, but it's cool. Ko Komiki Soma Fiamma 12, right? Because it was spawned in the 12th age, right? Fiamma means flame, I think. This, because this is air, I think this is moon goddess. I think it's crow language.
Oh, interesting.
So. This one is, I think it's earth. It is Tolkien Elvish. Lago, I can't remember. So you guys out there will probably know what language it is. I can't remember. It's lake, but I can't remember what language it is.
Okay.
And then the long name is that same name, Kemen Lago Ko Kamikisoma Fiamma 12, primal dragon of the house Earth, spawned in the air season of the 12th age, right? So crazy stuff, right? And that'll show.
In other words, there's not going to be a duplicate name.
Right. It's
the probability of that is astronomical.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Impossible. And then that also means you're not going to have twin dragons, right? Twin dragons could not hatch.
Almost certainly twin dragons couldn't hatch from the primals, right? And by the way, there's some lore around the primals that, at least in my head, how I'm kind of modeling this, that you essentially are saying that, when it's almost as if when you're spawning a dragon, how does this work? What's the lore? Why did I get a water dragon, right? That essentially you're making an offering, and one of the celestial dragons is accepting your offering, and you get, you're going to get that dragon.
You're going to get that egg that has that
that's
dragon.
How I think it all flows, and it all kind of makes sense for the lore. We are, by the way, because you asked this before, you can definitely apply a given name. We haven't decided, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to come out with this, because people can help us decide. we have a couple of proposals up that it can only be named once. You can give it a given name, and it might make it harder if you ever wanted to sell it or trade it. And it's like, yeah, I don't want that because you named it that stupid name. This name will always be there, and whoever owns it can make it show the hatch name versus the given name. So that would probably be good enough there. We also have a proposal that maybe you could change it at any time, but it gets more expensive every time to change it, right? So, who knows? The first time, definitely, I think everybody's agreed that it would be free to apply that. So 57 genes. There's so many interesting thing. Look, I have a misspelling. Darn it! How did I miss that? How did it not catch that? Anyway, that's my fault. I probably hit something when I was opening it. Anyway, so we go through and we map out, all of the genes, and you can see like, snout, horns, scales, head spikes, all the way down to, leg strength, all affect the physical 3D model. So you can see the effect when you compare dragons. Magic proficiency is like, say, because magic itself, as you'll see later, is not a gene. Magic proficiency is. So you might have high magic proficiency, but no magic, but that's still a breedable characteristic that, your family could all have, powerful magic proficiency. And when one of the dragons is actually hatched that has magic, it's, a very meaningful thing, right? It's very organic and kind of realistic. We have temperament, and I'll show you in a minute here where it actually affects these other genes. So, and I really wanted to model that the genetic possibility that one gene can have an effect on other genes and be built in.
Who's a geneticist on the team?
I wanted to be a geneticist for quite a while. So I was in school always with all the pre-med students in genetics class, right? But I didn't go that route. Maybe I should have. I don't know. I think geneticists now, and I think, by the way, I do think that we do have someone on the team whose significant other is a geneticist. But anyway, that we don't have an official geneticist, but open to it, right? Because the stuff coming up that we pulled some things out related to breeding, for example, out of the white paper. We're just going to release them later because this is already too much to digest, right? To grok. It's like it's so much to take in. It's like, okay, let's simplify it. Let's take that, put it over there, and put that out later. That will come out later. But and you can see the color. So you have literally for let's do primal. You can see hue, saturation, and value each have a 1 byte gene, right? So 0 to 255. So I don't know how many millions of colors you can create with that range, but it's pretty amazing. Then we have masks, which further create more variety, because you and I might have two dragons that have luck of the draw, crazy luck. They both have the same hue, really close to the same saturation level, really close to the same value. But why is yours brighter? It's because mine has this masking value that kind of subdued it. It made that more transparent, so you don't see that color as much, right? So, and it does that for all three of the main colors and the eye color as well. So, and then the pattern colors beyond that also have a pattern gene for each of the 6 the zones on the dragon's body. That's let's see here: the head, the neck, the torso, the tail, the wings, and the legs. So those 6 zones get these, and the artists are amazing. They've blended them such, and we had to do a few thousand random genomes rendered in order to verify that I'm constantly fighting for more variety, and they're trying to make it more organic, right? So you have to imagine there's a little bit of a balance there, and you can see we had some constraints that are defined later in the white paper that spell it out, that some of the colors are constrained in various ways in order to make the dragons still look real. They, because I will tell you, the first dragons that we saw come out were very saturated, very. Some of them were very pastel, but they looked like cartoon dragons. Although the body looks like a real dragon, the colors looked, not too real. And yet with this, we have a lot of them that come out as, just fierce looking, natural looking dragons. And then you have a pretty relative rarity, although it's not like super rare, where the colors are there and you're like, holy smokes, some of them just kind of catch you immediately when you look at them. So there's a bunch of cool stuff there. We get into, here's the temperament gene and pleiotropy. Do you know how to pronounce that? Anybody?
Entropy?
No, pleiotropy.
Oh, pleiotropy.
I don't know. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's where a gene affects other genes. So we have a few of those in here. And this one affects, I think there's 17 of these very physical, the wing claws. And when you see the real dragons, you can actually see them on the edge of the claws of the wings. The wing skin, the tail spikes might be a big. You can really tell with the head spikes because you get these massive like horns and spikes coming out of the head that just look very intimidating, right? And all of these, by the way, in gameplay, you can imagine you could have a game where certain moves would mean if you have a really high high value gene for tail spikes, that a certain move will be more effective than some other dragon using that same move, right? Stuff like that. And we're also working there are a couple of very interesting things on selecting a variety of genes in order to facilitate some outcome in a game that is going to be very hard to predict, right?
So there will be gameplay with this project as well. We hadn't
Hopefully.
even touched on that yet.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that.
They were only in the NFT kind of descriptive side of things. Are you going to be able to display any of the potential dragons, what they're going to look like?
We're intending to hold reveal until my vote is until the first egg is hatched.
Okay.
But it's a little bit risky because it might not be the coolest dragon that hatches. Who knows, right? But it'll be the first. So that might be really cool. We might otherwise, it depends on, like when we announce who is our partner, who has founding partner who has made the actual 3D model, that they have a significant place. Without them we couldn't have done this, and without them we couldn't have done it in a way that will really catch attention, right? So they're amazing artists and engineers, to say the least. And maybe we reveal it if we announce them before. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
Does some of that play into the timing of?
Yeah. Mostly because we don't
it's building up the hype.
Well, and the funny thing is, this is intended to draw down what would otherwise be hype, because but what we want is for people, it's like, okay, I can't look at that stuff and I can't talk about that stuff because I don't know it. What can I do? It's like everything. It's like it's all in the white paper. So hopefully people will understand it more by the time it gets to, okay, here's who our partner is here. Here's who our partner is here. Here's how it's deployed and everything else. And then it's like, sure, then we want hype. And when I say hype, we want people to get excited about having one of these dragons as as you would having a very expensive trading card, right? Some collectible thing. So that's the intent. And the use is so open-ended that, we know a few things that various among us on the team want to build after we get this out, but we also know a lot of other groups that have already expressed interest in building stuff also independently, either to use these dragons. The combination, by the way, I think when we get into it, frankly, is that we really want, if we were to introduce a game, we would introduce other characters alongside the dragons that would also have their own genomes, have their own backgrounds, and some pretty amazing interplay then, right? So here's the standard, like say the temperament gene, for example, will affect all of these other 17 genes by, if you get normal temperament, which is about half of all the dragons will have normal temperament, then you're less likely to get the extremes or the middle values. If you have mild, you're more likely to get mild middle values. And if you're extreme, then you're more likely to get a 0 or a 5. So you imagine on the horns, if you have extreme dragon, you're at least slightly more likely to get nothing, 0 horns or full on the biggest horns possible, right? So that extreme temperament means something. You go through.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead. I assume then there's going to be 2 sexes, and there's going to be breeding and female versus male, and maybe a female is worth more because it can lay eggs, etc.
Right. You I don't know. I'm not I've never bred dogs or horses or anything, so I don't know all of the patterns around that. But I know the genetics, and you can imagine for the genetics for breeding, that the general model is that the child or children will have a copy of each of the parents' genome. Whereas right now, this genome is spawned. It's a primal dragon from celestial dragons, right? This is a magical dragon. It only has one genome. The children will have 2 genomes, and they will have their own equivalent to a spawn hash, where it will select between the parents' genes, and will also have some selector for mutation, right? Then it might, maybe it's more likely to mutate if this dragon was spawned in the opposite season. Like if it's a fire dragon and it's spawned in water season, maybe it's more likely to mutate. I don't know, stuff like that. So, and we, a lot of little details haven't been decided, but yeah, that's not in a white paper because we wanted to keep it much more straightforward. There's an entire section on the color encoding, which is pretty interesting and specifically talks about saturation because in the air house, because air house is grays, right? But that's also why the air house has the possibility to get any of the secondary colors for its companion color. And, I can't wait till you guys see the dragons themselves, because when you see them and you kind of understand, just like, oh my gosh, I can see how this made that happen and this made that happen. It just makes it cool, especially if you're collecting it. And it's, frankly, it's more than what you would get with a typical NFT. Was like, it got a hat. Why did it get a hat? Just because it was just number 187, so it got a hat. Stuff like that is cool and all, but this kind of takes that to the crazy extremes where you don't have to know all this stuff at all. You can just say that is a cool looking dragon, I want it, and it's all cool. And you can say, oh, it's really rare, I want it, or oh, it has an elven name, I want it. But with this, you can also dial in and say, well, wait a minute, I can see this one has this purple pattern color. I'm going to breed it with this one so I can get that purple color against this yellow dragon, whatever you want, right? So people, I hope, will kind of play a game that way where it ends up being, there'll be
genome game.
Yeah, and you think about it,
gamifying genomes.
Yep, exactly. And it's gonna be game within the game where you might be looking for colors. I might be looking for a different, some particular gene, because this game over here, some particular strategy I have in this game, I want a dragon that has this set of genes, right?
To have the magic that will hatch later if you have a magic dragon.
Now, does a male dragon a stud?
I don't know. I don't think that's the whole thing. I assume, and the breeding is totally different. We've had many discussions on the team about the patterns. Essentially, there will probably be something you can imagine where I have a dragon, it's there, I just play it, I'm not going to breed it. It's like you might come, it's like, I'll give you this to breed it, I really want this, and it's like, sure, okay, so you can make some money because you're going to allow that dragon to breed, right? And I
On
don't
the
know whether stud fee or
Yeah.
whatever you call the other. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
on the flip side, it'd be like Genghis Khan, who's bred a lot, and now the majority,
Possibly.
a certain
Possibly.
percentage of the Chinese
Yeah.
have a link back to Genghis
And so,
Khan.
and by the way, those other dragons will be an entirely different class because there could be millions of them because people could breed and breed and breed, right? Whereas the primal dragons all only come from this spawning process described in the white paper, so they'd be very much more limited. The bred dragon, we need a better name for it than the bred dragons, but the dragons that are bred from the primals and from other dragons that were bred from the primals also are going to be all mixed house. They're going to, they're not going to be only one house. You might have a 50-50. You might have a, whatever, whatever arrangement you might have for, and you might want that. You might, because by the way, some of the initial mock gameplay we've even talked about really focuses on the elements, the elemental magic that your dragon might have. That you have, if you have a fire dragon from Firehouse that was spawned in fire season and hatched in fire season, you're not going to want to play that dragon during water season because it's going to have its disadvantage unless there's a special, maybe there's a special match that only allows fire dragons to play in water season, which is also interesting because they're all weaker, right? So we've gone through a lot of that, and those elements alone, even if you don't hit upon all the genetics, those elements alone make remarkable level of variety in the gameplay for what we've seen. And we've only, we just started defining some of these things. So yeah. And, I imagine, man, I could go into some of the stuff that we plan to do with the breeding. I don't know if we will, but where you could essentially run a hatchery, right? Where you can have special elements, you know the game, you're a professional. People could come to you and say, hey, I want to breed this dragon and I kind of want this result. And you, not us, you could do that. Right. And, we expect that there will be items like incubators that you might be able to use potions and incubators to change some of the probabilities that this dragon will hatch in the season that you're wanting to hatch, things like that.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. So incubators could be a business.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I must live in the Matrix, I tell you, because let me tell you something real quick. So at my surprise birthday party on Sunday, my son remarks to me, says, by the way, Dad, I just recently looked. I have a last name that's extremely rare. And he said, there's 107 of us in the United States. That includes married that are not blood. And we looked in the room and we said, oh my goodness, 12% of us are in this room.
Wow.
That's crazy.
In the entire world, this name? Yeah.
And my son is an only child. My father was an only child. I have one brother with no kids. My other brother had two boys who had two girls. So you see, the name is dying. So there's scarcity. So now having all of this genealogy and ancestry conversation and DNA conversation over the weekend in the past 3 days with family. And now I sit down in this and it's all about genetics and genomes, and it's a matrix. I'm telling you, it
is everything. I don't know how you ever predict that stuff, but it seems like when those things happen, there's good things going on in the world, or at least, things are at least, you call it stars aligning, whatever else.
Right.
I'll tell you,
dragon picture I saw in the car I had to send you last week. Wasn't that strange?
Yes.
Who would put a dragon like that on the side of their car? I don't know. It's bizarre.
Yeah, cool people. No, because early Dragon Chain stuff, I can't tell you how many, and all of us that were on the team were like, holy crap, stuff kept happening that was unbelievable. Like just stuff that, it's like you never expect this, somebody would walk in the room, was like, what? And it was, the whole, the plum pudding, what do they call that? Synchronicity stuff. Do you know all that? I mean, there's some, I mean, plum pudding. Look it up. There's a
Okay.
Wikipedia article on it even
Okay.
that's accurate, but it's basically the most absurd, impossible things happening in an alignment over many years that you would never believe if somebody just told you that it happened. So anyway,
That kind of stuff happens in my life all the time.
that's good. That's good. You're probably a good
Serendipity.
person.
And
Yes.
and
The genome, I will say, has an end where
coincidence.
we cluster all the color stuff together so that, and we did this so that the artists that were rendering it would have a much better time. You know, the genes, if you look at the sample genome, the genes are individually provided in the genome, but these are clusters of values that come from those genes interpreted. So, you know, we have an RGB in there. I can't remember if they're using the HSV. I think they might be using the RGB value for the actual color in the 3D rendering platform. So stuff like that. That's all in there. And it also makes it so everything's in one place. Like if you're looking at your dragon, you can kind of look at this and say, oh, okay, I can see why that section is kind of this weird purple color or whatever. Then the stability is also another section. And this is interesting because it's not genes. That the magic, and we, you know, did this on purpose because it's interesting, but it ended up making sense because your egg density affects how likely it is that your dragon will hatch, right, on any given block. Therefore, you can kind of, you know, put a pin on, okay, at if you have a density of 375,000, you know, at the mark from when you spawned to the 370,000th block, you know, I don't know, I don't know the probability that it would hatch by then, but every single block you have a 1 in 375,000 chance that it will start to hatch. And so when it hits that mark, if it's a low density egg and it hits that mark and it hasn't hatched yet, then you're going to have magic. And the longer it takes, the more magic you will have, right? And then the opposite, if you have on the higher density side, because there are only 8 densities, if you have a higher density egg and it hatches before its density by block count, you are then, the sooner it hatches, the higher magic score you will have, and it will be either a stable magic or an unstable magic depending upon which side of that it's on. So, and this is the interesting thing, is this magic itself and the egg density and those things are not genetic. It's not a genetic trait. It is I don't know, I guess it would be what do they call that? Anyway, it comes from
what they call it, like
it's like
characteristic attribute of a personality or kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a thing that comes and you can't predict it. And the great thing about that is, even if you have a house that has, you know, doesn't have any magic members in it, that, you know, you could get one, right? Because it's not genetic. But that magic proficiency is there so that there is a genetic trait which affects the use of this magic in a game, let's say, right? So, and then the last thing to cover, and I don't know how much time we're doing.
And then I got some questions.
Cool. The last thing to cover is registration and extension of a genome. So for all this to work, you need a genome registered in advance. So you essentially say, okay, I'm making a game, and I'm going to define this character, and let's just say it's going to be rendered as a card. You know, I'm not going to render a 3D unicorn, but I'm going to make a card of this unicorn. So I register the genome with as many genes as I want. You know, if it's a unicorn, it's going to be, maybe I have some color, maybe what kind of rainbow color is on the tail, and you know, how big is the horn? You know, is there anything else? What color are the eyes? So you'll have that genome registered. People can spawn unicorns now, right? After it's registered, okay, you spawn some unicorns. You know, I give them out free. You know, here's some unicorns, whatever. Now, let's say you come along and say, these are cool as hell. I want to add them to my card game, right? So I'm going to register a new extension to Joe's genome of that unicorn, and I'm going to add, I don't know, what would you add to this? Like some magic trait, maybe maybe size of their teeth, maybe how long their eyelashes
I see
are.
what you're saying.
How long their eyelashes are, right? I didn't mark that in mine. So you're going to mark, oh, I want these unicorns that have crazy long eyelashes in my game. The great thing is, like say in the modern world, as it is now, without a blockchain, what would you do? I would go to open market of the NFTs and I'd say, I'm going to find all of the cheapest NFTs. I'm going to buy them all, right? I'm going to buy them slowly so I don't affect the price. I'm going to buy them all. And this is another person. I would never do this. I'm against this. They're going to find all of them that have common, let's say, byte areas or zones on their values of those individuals. And they're going to buy all the cheapest ones that have really good values in this similar range. And now I'm going to define genes that give me all of the heavy value for all of the unicorns that are out there, because I own all the good ones. And I didn't tell anybody else, right? And I put that out, and this is how I define these eyelashes and this magic. With this, though, you can prove that you're not doing that because you're registering an extension which defines the mapping, like we have for this genome, the mapping for those eyelashes and for that magic trait, and you put it on chain, the extension, and through an API. So, traditional gaming systems don't have to know anything about blockchain. They just call an API. And you have to have in that registration, a marker for the extension event, which is in the future. It has to be sufficiently in the future that it can't be predictable. So essentially you say, 2 days from now, that event is going to happen, whatever. And when that event happens, all of the current individuals will now have those traits.
Will be affected by that.
They'll be affected by it. And yet there's no way for anyone with existing individuals to predict what traits they will get for those two genes. And it also then applies in the future. So it's like the system where no matter where in the timeline you are, you can still modify or, add stuff. You could take an existing class. Here's the crazy thing. You could take, for example, when we put these dragons out, you could come in and say, a good strategy for my game to get players would be to allow everybody who has a dragon to come in and play. But I don't want a dragon in my game. It's a modern game. Maybe I have assassins or something. You could literally make your characters, make an entire extension of the genome that would extend the dragons, make this new character, but this new character isn't even a dragon. And so it's now you have an entire genome, but all the people who hold dragons now hold that character also. And so you could do a whole bunch of stuff like that. And there's a lot of very interesting stuff that we've even talked about that would be remarkable for gameplay and meaningful, where it would be, the strategies that could be used would be intense. And the thing that I like about it is that I think it is possible to build games that would know some base level. Here's how people will play, but they won't be able to predict, because there's so much variety in these characters. They won't be able to predict how people could leverage these genes and and in the characters they hold to play the game an entirely different way than expected, right? And develop new strategies that will totally change gameplay, and it'd be an evolutionary thing. So anyway, okay, question.
Will there ever be eggs that don't hatch?
All we can say is, if you look at the hatching algorithm, the probability is, and if you know anything about probabilities and statistics, and I'm not an expert at it, but I always remember this part, that when you flip a coin, like say the common question, if you, sorry, it's right here, if you've flipped a coin 10 times and it's come up heads 10 times, you're about to flip the coin again. What are the chances that it comes up heads?
still 50-50.
Yes. It's always still 50-50. So much like this, if you have an egg density of 375,000, that means every time a new Ethereum block comes out, that's what the trigger is that
Okay,
Ethereum
you
block,
have that
you have a
same.
1 chance in 375,000 that it will hatch.
Gotcha.
And so I would say, and I, by the way, the first coding of the hatching algorithm was geared to how do I say that? Increase the probability, reduce the inverse probability at certain segments of time, so that by the end it would have a like 1 and 2, and then finally a 1 in 1 chance it's going to hatch. But when we looked at it and it really played it out, this made better sense to split it into different densities, so that some eggs some eggs deterministically have higher density, and therefore are going to take
Longer.
will have the probability that they will take longer to hatch. But it's interesting. It's still every block is going to be another chance.
Another chance. Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So I see that this white paper is really keyed in on the genome aspects and the attributes and the process of how eggs are hatched, as well as all the attributes and characteristics of a dragon once born or hatched, whatever. I would suspect then, if I understood you correctly, then other games, and I use that plural, could be spun off of these dragon NFTs, and people would incorporate that in the games, kind of like in a D&D type world or function. And because I'm not really a gamer, even though I have done like PC based games such as like Civilization and Call of Duty, etc. But I'm gathering that's what it is. And then to roll up the question with that included, you're going to need a pretty good population of various dragons with all these different attributes to be able to do gameplay. So it appears to me that that's pretty far down the road. Am I correct in that assumption?
It probably depends, right? Timing, I'm not the best person to ask, because I've seen, being in Dragon Chain for so long, you can never predict a lot of things, especially with timing. But we do have a phased approach where this first was very much on the technical, very much get the technology out there, get it in front of people's eyes, and see what the feedback is. See, for one thing, see if we missed describing something, because I'm certain, being so close to this and being as technical as it is, that someone is going to ask a question that I haven't anticipated. I'm like, oh, and we do have, by the way, because we found a few when we did the final review for before this draft release of the white paper, of concepts that were not explained, right? So I think we've captured them all, but we might not have. And breeding is one of those, and we purposely took that out to simplify it for now. And gameplay as well. Like, say, the initial, get these out. It's almost a game itself, figuring out how to spawn them best, and when to spawn them and whatever else. And then just understanding the technology in having the egg and seeing it hatch and doing all those things, and then collecting them. But then when you add breeding, then you end up with a lot more dragons. Now, they're going to have similar traits, but they're going to be a different class. So, like, say, it'll definitely be a different NFT contract, for example, right? They might very well be native on Dracaria chain only. We have thought about these even, that the possibility is there, and we've actually spoken about it multiple times, of whether we want to make these available on Ethereum alone or on multiple chains, right? And we can definitely do that. We opted, at least for now, to making it as simple as possible, so people don't have to understand, well, how does Dragon Chain connect with, and how do and here's some on Solana and here's some on on
Right.
Binance, and here, how does that work? And to avoid some of the complexity, we just kind of like, okay, we'll just put them on one chain for now, and
that one chain is going to be Ethereum, correct?
right, where the NFT contract is,
Where the NFT
right?
contract is Ethereum.
But all of the data,
Mhm.
the data that you will own, will be on Dracaria's chain,
Okay.
and so you can download it. You can
That's where I was
view it.
concerned. I don't know if we're going to get to current events today, but with all that's going on in the
Yeah.
Ethereum world,
Right.
that's a little risky to me.
Right, and that's why we could pivot at this point. We could put them on Binance or Solana,
Mhm.
if we wanted, before we roll this out. So, and we've been just kind of like, we don't know, right?
Like you said, that's where the money is right now, but
right.
there's money fleeting Ethereum, but we'll see. So when because I keep looking to my right because I had pulled up the white paper while you're going through it,
Yeah.
and was looking at, and I went straight to the vision here, and this is it's an arts project based on genetics derived from blockchain events and data, and
Right.
that summarized exactly what you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like page 3 is when the first time you introduced like the word NFT or the
right.
the acronym NFT. And so the gameplay first is the process of hatching
stuff.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some people are in my first take is it's could be kind of a slow process, a slow launch to get these dragons,
Right.
like you said, I could buy an egg that doesn't hatch for 14 months or something like that. That's possible.
It's possible.
Possible, which would add scarcity and hopefully value. And I would doubt that a 14-month duration for the egg to hatch, I would think would mean that its attributes are much more sought after.
Right. Well, and the fact that if you don't want to wait, you can trade it. Right.
Right.
You can trade it for an egg that has a low density, or you could trade it for an already hatched dragon.
Right.
Like, I at least know that I like that one. I don't know what I'm going to get. So
And you did say there would be use case even for an egg.
Yeah. We've thought about it. Like, say, if you had, imagine, this is just one of many possibilities that rather than buying a potion, if you have an unhatched egg, you could use, let's say you have an unhatched fire egg and you have an incubator that is, we don't know if the incubators will be per element or if they will be switchable, but either way, let's say you have an incubator that's turned on fire, it's fire season, and somebody wants an egg to hatch in fire season. You could add a fire egg that has not hatched in there, and maybe the other egg is more likely to hatch, kind of like bananas with your other fruits, right?
Interesting.
To make
will there be a time where the spawned eggs stop being produced or spawned and it's only breeding natural dragons? I don't know what to call them.
No, I mean, and the way it's laid out, and the reason we kind of want this is because the seasons dictate the cycles in the gaming that even some of the, for example, tradable card games or games that are more like board games that we've looked at, the season has a big effect that that it will change the map. During fire season, you're going to have a lot more fire going on, so it'll be a totally different game than it would have been the last season. So it's like it'll always be fresh, and hopefully people will develop strategies that work in various seasons. Like, in fire season, I have these 2 dragons and then this other character that I bring in, right? Stuff like that. And
can you hibernate a dragon, or would there be a benefit of hibernating a dragon?
We've talked about that. We've also talked about if a dragon has been, we don't have any idea, and it might be something that it could be general, but it could be only in one game, even where dragons that have been dormant, let's say, that they could potentially harden. They could become immobile, and you therefore would have to, they wouldn't die, right? Especially these primals. We wanted to make the primals At least in a game you could do whatever you wanted, right?
Right.
Somebody could say, oh, your dragon can die in this game and you can never use it in this game again. It doesn't mean you don't have it. It's still out there, right? You still have the NFT. You can play other games. But we have talked about that you would have to then do something to revive your dragon. If it's a water dragon that's gone dormant and it's become stone, you have to take it to the sea somewhere during water season, and wait for some event to happen. Maybe you buy some potions or something
so it has a healing effect.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
That's
we
kind
thought
of
about
cool.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
The idea of being a breeder was interesting. That concept of I'm not the number go up kind of thing, but it's kind of like a business.
Totally. Well,
I like that idea that
it would be fun because I know people would get into that. They would. The other side of things too was, if you think of this, I think RPG world, you think D&D like campaigns where you get a bunch of friends and you play this game and some fantasy thing. Things like that could really fit in. And some of the ideas we've had is, let's say you had an actual world and there were plots of land on this real world. I have no idea if we'll go there. I have no idea if we would, want to do that, or anybody theoretically could do this on the platform. They could come in and say, I'm going to make this. I have lots of ideas for how you could make that work. How, if you have a primal dragon from, you've spawned an egg and it hatched and it is a water dragon, that you would get a plot of land in the water nation, right? Whatever it would be, the water area. But that you could seemingly fit RPG campaigns into that real world, right? Where, let's say it's an immersive game built with Unreal or something, that you could build a game that would let you run your campaign through in this immersive experience RPG. And, you bring some dragons. Maybe there's some dragons that the whoever created that campaign would have, and they would be rewarded based upon how many people are playing their campaign. How many people are coming in and playing this game, and so yeah.
Is there life expectancy on these dragons?
The primal dragons, at least we've said
my dragon died.
Yeah, no. Now that's the same. I know. My opinion, I think that especially for the bred dragons, but I think it would be a really amazing gameplay element to say, this is a serious game. Your dragon can die. So, and you might have an elf, you might have a mage, you might have, who knows what you have for characters. They can die in my game, right? It doesn't mean if you can play them in another game, they can still, you still own them. They can still play there, but my game, they're dead. Right. So that would be kind of fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it certainly would. So, yeah, especially if you enjoyed that game and you wanted to come back, you wouldn't be able to bring that dragon back.
Oh, and that, by the way, is some of the other vision, because a lot of this stuff is really hard to give the necessary detail but stay high level without giving everything away. But there is a big element of making this work for traditional gaming companies who so far have heavily disliked the NFT world. Why? Because it's nothing but hype. Right. It's nothing but a bunch of crypto bros doing their thing, right?
Well, the other reason that I think they don't like it is that people own their property. It's not because right now the gaming world is you give them money for a product that they hold on a centralized
The problem has largely not been the game studios, though. It has been the gamers, that they rail totally against it. They hate the NFT world. And so you talk to any game studio, like, we want nothing to do with that. It was very strange, but I tell you, it's the same thing as everything else in crypto.
That's like
number go up mentality keeps us from getting any adoption. The value of if these very people who were pushing the number go up stuff were instead pushing utility and real fundamentals, the number go up would happen. And it's not just a it's not just a hippie thing to say that. I guarantee to you that those people would be sitting on multi-million-dollar Bitcoin right now if that was the strategy instead of laser eyes.
Agreed.
Okay, so and this is the same way, but what we're trying to show is here are real game usable mechanics built into a character that would improve your table D&D game right now if you had this, because you would know, hey, this new guy who's from out of town, this is
Give me a
character.
second. It's raining really bad here. I gotta take care of my dogs real quick.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries. So we have that, and essentially, we have spoken with some game studios, and we do have some interest. Somebody asked that, and I definitely, I can't say who or anything else, but there definitely is interest there, and on the publishing side and the development side, and a lot of what we're trying to do is make it. Here's an interface, like think AWS for gaming studios, not in terms of there's, want to host their CPUs, they're actually using Google or AWS for that. I want these capabilities open with,
to be able
very
to
simple APIs.
To their game.
Yeah. So they could plug these into their games. They don't have to ever be NFTs. They don't have to ever, you can even model everything the way they have now, even. However, the pattern that I like, that I think would work really well is that, with Dracaria on the platform, although, maybe it would not be an absolute thing, that, different games can do things different ways, but that the general model would be that you don't buy the game, you buy the character. And you might buy multiple characters, right? I mean, I might buy a whole party, and I might buy multiple elves, and I might buy multiple dragons, so that I have some variety and can play different ways.
Like playing at a public park, but you bring your own ball.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's kind of the general model that we're going for. And that things, principles that would be meaningful, like by default, all games are moddable. That is, somebody could come up with a better game than you did of your game by changing a few rules, and they would be rewarded, but proportionally, that you would still be
right.
You would actually gain,
creator of the game,
right?
The
and
game
you would gain
better.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they add a couple of elements, or maybe they add a couple of new genes and change some rules that fit those genes that they added, and that's a mod. And the more people play that mod, the more they are rewarded. But you are also rewarded because 80% of the game was built by you, right? So it's an interesting thing, and there are some things to solve there, but that's kind of the mix that I'm wanting to see with it, and kind of the distant vision. But we're going to start with getting these out. We're going to start with adding things that you can do with the dragons once they're out, adding poses, adding animations, doing various things to make your dragon cooler, and to develop it, essentially. And then hopefully, we'll see some either in-house or partner developed games. We're already starting on some of that stuff. And then further future, extension, new characters, new character classes, and then a more open ecosystem where people can come in and build stuff with characters that already exist, and introducing their own characters and doing things like that. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this is my apologies for the interruption.
No worries.
This is the first, I downloaded the white paper right now. I printed the PDF, and I'm going to go through it. So this is my first exposure to all of this. I'm anxious to see what these dragons are going to look like, and I get the idea of the rarity, the scarcity, the attributes, all of that, which will have an appeal. And it makes me think of crypto kitties a little bit, a very little bit. And I which I mentioned in Super Happy Dragon Lucky show, I think I said, but Dragon Chain can handle the volume where people were cussing and screaming at Ethereum because CryptoKitties was killing the network. You know,
that's one of the reasons it's so weird. And you have to think, okay, if you're a creator and you're building something, and you have imperfect systems you're dealing with, you know, because you could say same things like, oh, if you put it on Ethereum, it could kill it if, you know, if we get some level of attention like that, right? It could kill Solana the same way. It could kill the Binance chain the same way if you get that attention. So how exactly now Dragon Chain I'm confident with, right? So if we mint them natively on Dragon Chain, so when you spawn it, it's on Dragon Chain. You know, kind of the ideal process is, you know, that you would spawn them on Dracaria's own chain. And if you want to, you know, and most normal people wouldn't, right? If you want to, you can pull it off. You can put it on your hardware wallet on Ethereum, or you can pull it off to Solana and put it into an NFT exchange and trade it with somebody. And it's totally up to you, right? That's the ideal. That's what I want to be. I don't know if it'll be like right now. That's not the initial state, right? But you know, we could rapidly move to that if, for example, Ethereum fees were monstrous.
They are, in my opinion, they always have been.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree. So
that makes perfect sense, though. It's the tradable aspect is on the Ethereum network, where the real brain and guts and all of that is on the Dragon Chain.
Yeah. Yep. So, yep. That's the gist of it.
So do you have a tentative date that people could look at? I mean, I know we're following on Twitter, Dracaria World, and watching for some of that.
We don't have a date. We have some goals. Like, we're trying to get it out, and you know, we're trying. And I can't promise, right? So maybe I shouldn't even mention the month, but we're trying to get it out as soon as possible. We still have some art things that are coming in. We still have some technical things. We still have even website stuff that is getting completed right now.
Yeah.
So you know, there's a little bit of work left to do, but I would say largely almost 90% of all the work is already done, which is in the spawning and the genome and the contract and those things. Those are all done. And you know, we have a little bit of testing to do, but yeah, I'm hoping it comes out soon.
Yeah. I have two final questions.
Cool.
The first one is, Joe, do you believe that dragons were a real thing because they seem to be cross-culture around the world? And are they leftover dinosaurs that ended up becoming extinct? Number two question is, you said that this is one of the most exciting projects you've ever done or created, and you have had such a wide range, you know, all the way from FBI to Disney. And for you to be this excited and think so highly of this project, my big question is, given all of that history of various projects, why this one? So first, the dragons, were they real? And second, why is this one this so close to your heart?
I think dragons are real. Yeah, I don't know why. It's an interesting thing, and you know, the Asian dragons are slightly different than the model of the European ones, and I think also some of the other, like Indian, they're a bunch of different kinds, right? But I think a lot of that probably just accounts for human. It's the same thing as you know, you can't rely on somebody for evidence. It's like, oh no, he had curly hair. No, he didn't. He had straight hair, right? People just, you know, so they probably draw them different, and then they kind of see each other how they draw them, and so I think that's how that split happened. But yeah, I don't know. They're probably as real as a lot of other things that our education would tell us isn't real, right?
So do you think they actually existed at one time?
I have no idea, right? I mean,
there's Komodo dragons now.
Well, yeah,
dragon, right?
There are. Yep.
Right.
Yep. You know, Thunderbirds. I mean, look at how many magical creatures there are described. You know, there's a creature that looks spitting image of a freaking unicorn. I saw in a zoo once. I was like, wait a minute. Isn't that just a unicorn? You know, and it's like, okay, it's not magical, maybe. I don't know.
or the sea monsters, you know, the Kraken that
I was going to say
the galleons.
They say that they'll,
So,
you know, the
I
scientists will
think
find
so.
new creatures.
My official answer is yes, they still exist.
Nice.
And then the reason, I guess, the reason why this is the most exciting, or why this project, I think this project is, it's almost like it was handed to us, that, you know, that team reached out to us with this dragon, and I'd been clamoring. You guys, you watch me enough on shows or interviews. Somebody needs to do this. This hasn't been done is a freaking travesty so far. We have this technology, we have this need, and it's even, it is a need, I think. But even if you don't think it's a need, it is something that radically improves the potential gameplay and variety, and the, you know, makes it much more like it's much more like a real world thing. It's not like I have, you know, 4 parameters that I have to build my strategy around. You know, this is crazy, exponential, and dynamic, right? It's very dynamic because the seasons change. You might be fighting an air dragon this time that you think was a fire dragon, and, you know, you didn't realize, stuff like that that really open it up to a game dev. Which, you know, the challenge then is, you need some games that build, that actually use these genes and do, you know, different things that you don't expect. You think about in-game events, like, say, for example, in my original pitch to that artist group, the 3D artists, was that events in game would be affected, again, from entropy from a blockchain, but from the Bitcoin blockchain, because it's like every 10 minutes. And, you know, now we have a couple of other strategies we think we're going to play, but, you know, you're playing in a certain world, and maybe there's a landslide, maybe there's a storm, you know, and what can that affect? You know, maybe you could develop new types of dragons or new traits for your dragon if you happen to be in this situation when it happens in another event. You know, there's a bunch of really crazy stuff that could come out of this that doesn't exist in the world. And the variety was so intense. We went through this, and everything falling into place, you know, with the team. You know, we would discuss, you know, even the naming. That naming was only developed last month. We didn't have anything built until last month. And I was like, it's like, it should have a name. It's like, you know, it's a meaningful thing that'll add extra, the lore for sure, but add extra, what do I want to say? It's almost like a gravitas of this dragon. It has this name, and it's that color, and it's, you know, whatever else. It just becomes an amazing thing. And you know, you will probably have people who want to collect dragons that have names in a certain language, right? Stuff like that would be very interesting. So
something that appeals to me is, while you dive deep into the details, and, you know, there's the math portion here, but the idea that we're using blockchain, anywhere we're using blockchain, that gives the a wider audience, brings newcomers to the technology. You know, most people don't know what a hash is and this kind of thing. And if we're bringing that idea, then people are becoming more and more understanding of the potentialities of blockchain and this utility, and how it's being used here. It can also be used over here to solve another problem. And
by the way,
anywhere we see that, I love it, and I want to embrace it, because we all know, World Blockchain Roundtable, we know blockchain's potentialities and its potential to solve real big problem issues that you know, society has. And this is just another example of how we can use blockchain and exemplify its ability. You know, right now we're fighting over, is, when we look at something, was this AI generated? Is it real, or is it fake? Is this real news, or is this fake news? And if it's documented on a blockchain, you know it is real. Well, this attribute of this dragon is real, and it was created this way, and based off of this hash on Ethereum, and and all of the breakdown. It it creates the reality versus I don't know if this is real or not.
Right. And the fact I tried as much as, I think from soup to nuts, it's described well, that every single thing about your egg, your dragon, your genome is deterministic, unpredictable, and you can go and or your friend or whoever's going to trade can go and verify all of that info all the way to the chain. And it's very meaningful because none of it's a random number generator. And I promise we're not cheating, when my nephew's playing the game against you for $1 million, right? That's what you have right now. That's what they do. And I'm sure some of them will hate it because they are doing that. Hopefully not, but I'm sure some of them are. Given the way I've seen other stuff happen in the world, I'm sure they are. But
go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I just have one last question. I know we're getting tight on time, but so with the model that has been built by the team, could you see a real world use case for that math?
Good question.
Oh yeah.
Or model and solving some problems in our world today? And can you disclose any of that that you might think it could apply to, or
so for example, you can apply it to gaming in Las Vegas, gambling. You could apply this tech to that, and you would be able to prove to your customers at a casino that you're not that the slots aren't cheating you, and it wouldn't even matter what the auditor from Nevada said. In fact, the auditor from Nevada should be requiring this technology in those machines and at the tables and everywhere else, because it would actually control them. You would be able to know I'm not being cheated. I'm the odds are still in the house's favor. Everybody still makes the same amount of money, but I actually have a real chance, right? You think about it, lotteries could use this system, and again, that's still, I'm on the dirty side of stuff, with gambling and lotteries and all that, but lotteries would actually be fair. Right now, you don't know how they're actually selecting those, because enough times there have been hacks to those systems. McDonald's, with the issue they had, they should be using a system like this because they could prove that yes, you really did get that boardwalk. It's the only one we can prove. It's the manufacturer and flow that it came. And you could probably do it digitally, much like we are spawning eggs, in a way that it's not like you would pull it off the side of the you'd have to scan something, but then the proof would be, okay, you scanned it and here's the result, right? It wouldn't have to go through manufacturing. Like Pokemon cards, they had an issue where people were pulling off the rare cards off the line and selling them themselves, right? You think about that, they shouldn't have those issues. This technology has existed for several years now, and we've tried to get in, and we haven't been able to get in. So we just need to show people, because it's too abstract to go through the several hoops to get to a decision maker. Instead, we just need to put it out there and make it a thing. So people, and by the way, when you're designing this stuff, and if you want to build a game on it, you do not have to understand it to the level that I do, or even that people I know do, where mathematicians, you don't have to understand it to that level. You just have to understand the patterns and the logic patterns of these various functions, because once you have that, you can tie stuff together and make very interesting combinations of these. That's
and what then the free market would move those ideas that are successful forward.
Right.
That's
so maybe it's a bad example or summary. So you could say that what you're doing is you're putting the good old Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Pokemon cards on a blockchain, and where everyone can see that these are real, unique, bad maybe terminology, randomized, but are provable, and and now anyone can make this into a game. Use this into a game.
And by the way, I also have a vision, and this is a little bit harder to do, but it's totally doable, where board games themselves can be improved radically. Like I said, the D&D one, because you could trust that, okay, I really did roll this character 8 years ago, and I've played with this character in 52 campaigns and it's leveled up, and you could actually check that those numbers are right before you let me play in your neighborhood game, right? Same thing with anything else, and there are various ways even to reward people for providing the info about a game on chain, and you make it so that like Dave would often bring up friction. You make it so that yes, you could cheat, but it's very unlikely, and it'd be very obvious when you were. So you
very
can improve,
expensive to cheat.
Yeah, and you can and it's of course our stance on the discussion for today was on polls and voting, right? The actual topic for this episode. I mean, the same tech applies there. It's slightly different ways, of course. You don't care about an unpredictable outcome, but you care about having elements or events and information on chain prior to that outcome so that anybody could audit it. So it's all out there and obvious. You know how your vote was counted. I know how my vote was counted. I don't know how your vote was counted.
That's kind of where my mind was going. This could really bring some truth and honesty to.
Very similar. Yes. Okay. So real quick, Luke Wiss asks first person or third person. All the above, include board game, card games, real world games, first person, VR, if you wanted it. It totally depends on what people make, and I'm actively exploring that with a lot of people, trying to figure out, what's the, and by the way, everything that we'll be doing will be as a reference implementation. Here's an example of how you could build this and how it could work, and come up with your own ideas or even modify this thing that we've built to improve it, right? That's kind of the gist. That I do think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to do a good variety of different things with this, and that's what's going to be fun about it, I think.
Yeah. I my apologies to the chat. Didn't have my chat open to look at who was posting what in the chat.
Yep.
But,
man, thanks everybody for joining us, and hopefully you'll come back in as we we'll go further and further. Most of the announcements will be on Super Happy Dragon Lucky, which is the show right before this one, and typically we just do Dragon Chain and DIN updates and World Blockchain Roundtable updates. But
what is Din's role in Jakarta?
I did get to answer that at the beginning before you showed up.
My apologies. If you
governance, no, it's cool. There is already a private layer in DIN that all of the official votes happen for the builders vote. And as dragons hatch, there will be a dragon vote. So only hatched dragons can vote.
So you'll get like a lot when you purchase it, or when you get a bond.
No, the dragons will be direct. So if you have a dragon, it'll just have a hatched dragon will be able to vote.
A hatched dragon will be able to vote. Okay.
In the dragon vote. But then the builders have their own vote, and that is lot.
So, okay.
And by the way,
a registered voter. A dragon is a registered voter.
Yes, because it's hatched, right?
I love it.
Yeah. So DIN is going to be the place where all of that is, and all the messaging is, and everything else, right? I mean, I don't know. Everybody pushes us to get a Discord server and stuff, but
don't do it.
Well, if you get a Discord server, you just point it to DIN.
Exactly. It could be for announcements and stuff. We could keep it simple,
but for more details, go to DIN.
Yeah. Right on. I think I'll look through. We're hopefully going to compile an FAQ. I'm running out of time. I have less than a minute. I'm going to play the teaser trailer also. The dragon is not revealed, although it is a real part of the dragon that you do see. And I believe that is the Earth egg, the real Earth. Oh, we didn't ever show the eggs.
You have less than a minute.
Damn it. I have less than a minute. What do I do? Do I just tune in next week?
I think you do the trailer. That trailer was awesome.
Just do the trailer. We'll tune in next week. I'll show you the eggs. I'm so sorry.
Man, no, we love it. We love it.
All right. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.